AI can learn way, way faster, and the technology is improving every day.
30 years ago, I was involved in the data mining and data warehousing, which is now the foundation of the AI. And that risk was always there when the tool and technology is misused or is misrepresented. So it is very important when you're looking at these AI solutions to understand their competency of the development of those solutions is not just sort of a wrap around the ChatGPT or other AI platforms. Hi everyone, this is Hamid Kohan. I'm the President and CEO of LegalSoft and also President and CEO of a new company, Practice AI, which was launched a couple of years ago, creating AI platform for a legal industry, especially for personal injuries, which is our first target. And I am very happy to have a great guest with us today who's been involved with this project for a while and has been a tremendous help. Richard Eichenbaum is with us today. So, hello, Rich.
Good morning. It's nice to see you. Thanks for having me. As you said, my name's Rich Eichenbaum. I'm president and CEO of Live Oak Injury Law Group. I've been practicing over 30 years. For the first 23 years or so, I was a trial lawyer for insurance companies. And since 2014, I've just been representing injured people and had the pleasure of being involved in the development and testing of the AI system and the demand system. So thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you, Rich. You've been a tremendous help and provided amazing guidance about how to produce our first product within the Practice AI, which is, medical record summaries that ends up to be a personal injury demand. And it's definitely been a journey, and it started from not being exactly on target into right now is in production, and hundreds of the law firms are actually using it thanks to you helping to get it there, because the quality, the AI is very important when it comes to the legal matters, especially demands, which is, compensating people for their injuries and getting their positive results. So just a tad bit about what the Law Practice AI is about. I know with you, we started with those three different products, the medical summary and medical chronologies, and also demand. But the whole target for us as an extension of what LegalSoft was created by the scaling law firms through virtual staffing, marketings, and so forth, is to introducing AI into that mix to enhance that experience, because we knew it's going to be coming anyway. So, and it got very crowded, and it started with ChatGPT, which was good to use, not good to use, is safe to use, or whatever. And now we have our product released. So what has been your experience? Because you've been practicing for a very long time, from a traditional practice and now to technology-enabled practice. The impact of the AI in your practice, being a solo practitioner in this area, what do you see as both concerns, issues, and opportunities?
Well, it's funny that we're talking about advanced technology, and here I am using wired earphones because I can't get my buds to work. And it's almost symbolic of kind of what I've experienced a little bit. In some senses, when we first started, I think you heard me say, probably didn't like what I was saying, but I don't think AI is ready for prime time in the legal field. And AI has a simple example of, years ago using my cell phone for talk to text. Sometimes you get some funny messages. And even though it's been around for almost 20 years on talk to text believe it or not, on a Droid phone, it's still not perfect, and it doesn't get punctuation right, things like that. So even with 20 years of talk to text, that technology, AI is still not quite there in my view, but as you know, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I expect very high standards, and we've had some hiccups. I'm not completely convinced that AI is ready for prime time. And I have some concerns about it, mostly not because necessarily of sole practitioners using AI. I'm more worried about the insurance companies using AI, because insurance companies they're always looking for ways to cut costs. They're always looking for ways to cut people, and they're always looking for ways to deny claims. And without that human oversight, I have a feeling that insurance companies are in over their head. I don't think they fully appreciate the limitations of AI. and then they use those AI evaluations to deny claims. That's been my experience. But I think that your tool that you're developing and we're still developing, I think there's a key element of that tool that is helping the insurance companies overcome those limitations. And we can talk more about that later, or I can tell you about what I think about it now.
Sure. No, you brought up a great point, because we know that the defense and insurance companies are always ahead of the game when it goes, because they have unlimited resources, by deploying different technologies, solutions, and systems in place to be able to essentially help their cause. And this is what we're trying to do, the same thing for the plaintiff side, equip our network with the same level of resources and technology, so they don't become a victim of lack of resources or technology when they're dealing with the defense, when they're dealing with the insurance companies and so forth. So that was one big motivation to be able to do this. So, like, for example, when we're talking about the demands, as we know, demands needs to be generated in the personal injury case, no matter what the size of the case is, what the injuries are, whatever. But a good chunk of those demands becomes sort of a formality when there's a minimum policies and there's a great deal of injuries and you have a minimum policy, and the firm still has to spend good bunch of resources, being a paralegal or associate or attorney themselves, writing those demands, understanding all the medical documents and MRIs and X-rays and everything else. And you still need to analyze it, summarize it. It takes hours and hours to do it. And a lot of time is not necessary, but it has to be done if you're going to file a claim, right? So the purpose of us was to fix that issue first, is that instead of spending 6 hours of somebody's time to do a demand, that you're doing a $15,000 demand or $60,000 demand, and you already have a tremendous amount of injuries, to bring that into minutes, not hours, so you can spend your time doing the more serious stuff, which is litigating, not writing a demand or summarizing medical records, right? So that was the big objective of the first release of the product, the Practice AI. And so how was your experience when we started, I guess, a couple of years ago, reaching out to you to understand your requirements, your guidance, and recommendations about what we produce? What is your feedback on that?
Well, I think when we started, there were some growing pains, and, there's still some growing pains. What I've seen improve dramatically is the ability, especially with your typical automobile case, for the AI to be able to review the police report or even review ambulance and emergency room records and give a good AI summary of how that particular traffic collision occurred. And it can often draw specifics. The document reader, the AI document reader, can draw specifics, names, places, direction, speeds, and things like that. And I've seen dramatic improvement in that area. And so that, to me, is really encouraging. We also had a dog bite demand. There was a slip and fall demand. And I think, working with your office, we talked about personalizing this or making this more effective for various jurisdictions by helping the AI go to the jurisdiction where the particular incident occurred and using law that's available electronically. It's free. And the AI was able to draw the particular vehicle codes from various states. So I've looked at cases from Texas. I've looked at cases from Michigan and Minnesota and other jurisdictions. And I think that is really an advantage because it makes the product available nationwide. You can make it jurisdictional specific. And we've also used that to draw in jury instructions, which are the instructions that a judge would read to a jury in that particular jurisdiction, to make it more personal and make it very specific. And it takes a lot of the work off of the lawyer. And of course, you need a human oversight to make sure that the correct vehicle code has been cited and make sure that the correct jury instruction is being cited, because the attorney might have a slightly different theory of liability, or there may be other vehicle code sections or jury instructions that the attorney feels might be helpful to their client that perhaps AI didn't pick up on. But it's a great starting point. And I think on the liability aspect, for the 5 different types of cases that we've been working on for the last year or so, I think there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be proud of that your office your firm's been able to work through some of those bugs. On the other side, the document reader, I've learned a lot, and I've been doing research about AI hallucination, which I had no knowledge of. And, I grew up in Silicon Valley. My office is on the south end of Silicon Valley. And so I'm so old school, Hamid. I still get a newspaper every Sunday in paper form. Now I read the paper, obviously, digitally every day, but there's been, in the last couple of Sundays, there have been a couple articles in the San Jose Mercury News talking to CEOs who've been involved with AI, some for as long as almost 20 years. And they're talking about the concerns that they have with hallucination. And there have been some cases in the news about AI hallucination. One just came out. It was reported by Reuters on February 18th. There was an article by Reuters talking about a large personal injury firm that advertises nationwide on TV. And in the state of Wyoming, they have a lawsuit against Walmart. They filed a brief, and unfortunately, the lawyer had to explain, because Walmart caught it, that the brief that they filed cited two cases that don't exist at all. The AI hallucinated, and it created cases that the AI thought would be helpful to the plaintiff. So the Wyoming judge is considering whether to sanction those folks. There was a similar case in New York several months ago where some lawyers did a brief, and the defense pointed out that the cases that were cited didn't exist at all. And so that judge I think there may have been sanctions of $2,000 in that case. My favorite case is the one out of Minnesota in federal court, where there's an expert who is filing a declaration, and he's talking about the dangers of AI. And his declaration actually contained studies talking about the dangers of AI, and those studies don't even exist. The AI hallucinated the studies that were helpful to that particular case. It had something to do with deep fakes and former Vice President Kamala Harris. So there's a lot to be concerned about with AI. And I've gone down the rabbit hole doing research, and I have some of these articles. There's some really fascinating information coming from Silicon Valley CEOs. And now in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley has expanded from just the South Bay, where San Jose is, to there's a CEO in Berkeley he actually worked for Google. There's another CEO for conversational AI, and it's called Conversa, and he's been doing this since 2007. Both of these gentlemen have major concerns about hallucination in AI, and so we've experienced that a little bit with your tool in the medical records. Many months ago, my personal experience was I have a case where it was an auto accident, and the young lady had an MRI, and the MRI was read by the radiologist as saying there were no herniated discs. Well, AI, being as helpful as it is, actually turned the reading of that MRI around and said that there were herniated discs at multiple levels. And I just happened to catch it because I knew the case. I knew that particular issue very well. So I'm hopeful that it's going to continue to improve. I think I'm in the category right now of cautiously optimistic. And having read what these two CEOs, they run AI companies, having read what they say, I'm a little concerned that AI using AI in the legal field and other fields, that as long as it's taken talk to text to get where it is now, having used it for 20 years, I hope it doesn't take AI and medical reviews demands. I hope it doesn't take as long. I know that AI can learn way, way faster, and the technology is improving every day. But that's my concern.
Right. It is definitely part of the process. It is like what you brought up, the cautious. As you know, I worked and lived in Silicon Valley for 20 plus years. I was in the heart of the tech, and I probably 30 years ago, I was involved in the data mining and data warehousing, which is now the foundation of the AI. And that risk was always there when the tool and technology is misused or is misrepresented. So it is very important when you're looking at these AI solutions to understand their competency of the development of those solutions is not just sort of a wrap around the ChatGPT or other AI platforms, and it is unedited, unaudited either, and is not verified. So a lot of people blindly just jump into the ChatGPT. They want to write a $10 million contract, and they think just put it into ChatGPT and it gives you the contract, and it's like, okay, I'm going to just sign it because ChatGPT said so. And then they find out that, oh, there's a huge clause in there that is a huge liability. And they just sign it, but they just think it just come out of the ChatGPT. And they believe that the ChatGPT now replace every single, attorney type nationwide, which it doesn't. It's almost like, you go to the attorney because, they're going to check and triple check everything and explain everything and plug all the holes and so forth. ChatGPT doesn't do that. And no AI really do that. So it was very key for us to be able to focus in the area where we can with a high level of confidence, with having a team like yourself and probably another 10 litigation PI attorney, which are on our network, helping us to define what is acceptable for the AI to produce. So to not have hallucination, not to make mistakes like that, and be able to produce it where you would have accept the same thing that would came out of your senior paralegal or associate. What they put out too as a demand or medical summary is never perfect either, because if you did, you would never review one. So at the very best, we're trying to keep up with what you would have the internal office staff generating the same level of a quality, if not better, of work, but with a fraction of the time and not taking a month. I know firms who have 160 plus demands in the backlog because they're waiting for the paralegals and associate to write them. So is millions of dollars sitting in the backlog because they can't get them done. And that causes, I'm sure you experienced it too. You don't send out the demand. You don't start a negotiation or settlements. You don't do that. You don't settle. You don't get the money. With the contingency firms, cash flow is always an issue. So literally you cannot afford, I don't care what size firm you are, you cannot afford to have a backlog of demands anymore, because you can use the law practice AI to create the medical summaries, and then you want to write the demands. Well, you save 2-3 hours just doing medical summary, or doing the whole thing. And then instead of spending 6 hours preparing it with the same level of mistakes that AI would make, that a staff can make, but spending like 20 minutes just reviewing it, like you mentioned you did, and you catch things. I don't think there is any AI solution out there for any purpose, especially legal, that is 100%. It doesn't exist. It's almost like thinking that I have a staff that never, ever makes a mistake. I mean, we all know that doesn't happen. We just hope that they make less mistakes and smaller mistakes that where the management or senior staff are around to correct and compensate for it. So I think that's where we are with this technology. I would never ever claim that anything, our practice AI or our demand generations, anything like that is going to be 100%. It always needs to be reviewed, and finalized by a professional. That being a demand writer, that could be the associate, whatever, but it needs to be that. So the 100% thing is totally out of the picture. But one thing I also wanted to mention about what our solution is targeted to do is to not necessarily prepare you for that 7-figure trial. I mean, you can do some of it, just like you said, the doc reader, and you can summarize hundreds and thousands of pages. So you have the summarized data and so forth, but nobody should depend 100% on that result to go and be the 7-8 figure case. It's just a help, just like you hire help in the office to help you do things, from receptionist to the case manager to the paralegal to the associate. This is just another component in that chain of work to expedite things, do the cost reduction for the firm overall, and save time. So that is our target. And then we're starting from intake, helping with the intake is a pain on everybody's firm. Intake is just a time-consuming, bilingual intake. LegalSoft itself has about 2,500 intake staff placed in about 1,000 firms. So I know the pain points, and we haven't even touched the surface. I could have 100,000 people placed in those firms because it's a pain point. So we're trying to help that with the AI intake that is customized for personal injury, for example. And then the doc collection. and then doc summarizer, and then analyzing data for depositions, which is a pre-lit support or a lead support, but not litigation. So our vision is to be part of a total solution, not the solution itself. And then using the human resources the best possible to complete and make it right.
Right. I'm so old. I mean, when you talk about technology and AI, I'm so old that when I started, I had to learn in a law firm how to use a micro cassette recorder, and I dictated onto a mini cassette all of my letters and my summaries for the insurance company and such, and then I would hand it in an envelope to a transcription person, and that person would type it and give me a letter. And I would edit it, and I would give it back. I didn't even have a computer on my desk. I would give it back to them, and they would edit that. When I left for a while, and then when I came back to the insurance defense side in 2004, they said, we're not going to have transcriptionists anymore, but we have this wonderful software that is voice recognition software, and all you have to do is work with it and optimize it. I worked with it for about a year, and I found it not to be optimal, and I'm not going to name the company, but they actually brought the representative from LA to Silicon Valley to see, because I guess I was probably the only dinosaur in the company using this stuff. But when the representative sat down and said, "Oh my goodness, you're getting 80% accuracy. How did you do that? That's amazing." And I had to look at the representative and say, if I had a transcriptionist that got 2 out of every 10 words wrong, they wouldn't last a day. 20% is not good enough when you have a live person doing that job. That was in 2004 and 2005. I was just doing some research, and this CEO of Conversica in the article from the San Jose Mercury News, if you want it, I can get you a copy of it. But it was ironic because one of his concerns with AI is that it's still only about, in his view, only about 85% accurate, which means 15%, and that's per task. And so what he was saying is, if you give it one task, it's going to be 85% accurate. That's industry acceptable, according to him. He's been in the business since 2007, this company's been going. And so 15% error rate is apparently acceptable. What he pointed out was if you give it one task, you get 85% accuracy. But if you give it 10 tasks, each one of those tasks, you have that same error rate. And so by the time you get from the first task to the 10th task, it's very difficult to make it even 85%, and your error rate goes down.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There's no such thing as 100%. And it is such an honor and I think accomplishment to have somebody with your background, with your being the perfectionist, being in industry for so long, actually, using our AI platform. I think that itself alone is a big accomplishment for us, because I know, your background and your level of accuracy and your accomplishment. And it's just a matter of just getting on board, because, for those firms who are just sitting on the sideline and wanting to see what happens, is the same folks who did not jump on the opportunity to use a very extensive case management software like Filevines, Clios, Lidifies, and those guys, and they're still using Google Sheets or Excel Sheets or Google Drives and stuff like that. AI is in the same path. It's going to happen to you no matter what. I don't care what kind of practice you have, where you have it, how small or big your practice is. AI is going to happen. The same thing, the internet happened, the same way .com happened, AI is going to happen. That is going to impact every individual on the personal level, business level, social level, all going to happen. So my big thing with our network of thousands of law firms we work with is that they get a chance and opportunity to try it, see how it can help you. You don't need to jump in 100%, change everything to AI, like using ChatGPT for everything. No, but you got to start testing and getting involved to be able to identify what works for you and your background and your firm and so forth, and start read through what's successful, what's not. So when this thing happens, you're on board. So if it's for the intake AI, is doc collection, doc summary, demands, pre-lead support, everything like that. I'm just saying the attorneys need to come on board and start testing this stuff, using this stuff, so they don't fall behind competition and they don't fall behind industry, and also the defense. Defense is heavily using AI, and they're going to use every bit of it to fight against the plaintiffs. So for you to be able to be in par, you got to do the same thing. And we are the one who are actually providing that opportunities for those firms to get involved in the earliest stages. So when it gets better and better, you're there already.
Well, and like you said, what I mentioned earlier about your firm's tool, because the defense is relying so heavily on AI, and most of these insurance companies, you don't, in the old days, you would mail your demand package to the defense attorney. Nobody does that anymore. You upload it to a doc center. That doc center, that information, once it's put into electronic form, it gets scanned by AI. The tool that I think plays directly into and helps overcome the disadvantages or the potential pitfalls of AI being used by insurance companies are the table that your AI creates, because as the medical document reader goes through, it tries to pick up each and every diagnosis code. And they're also working on diagnosis codes are critical because it tells the insurance company's AI how serious those injuries are, the types of injuries that you have. And then it also has a tool that we've been working on together to try to get the billing by using the procedure codes, are also called CPT codes. So you have the DX codes, the diagnosis codes, and the table, I think, that comes from that is, to me, invaluable. I think if any firm starting to use AI, if they do nothing else, use the medical record reader and use that tool to extract the diagnosis codes. You may want to, do your own. In California, we have strange things where, you put the billable and you put the adjustments, and you can only claim what is paid or owed. But across the country, those diagnosis codes should be universal throughout the United States. The CPT codes, those procedure codes for billings, they're trying to make those universal throughout the United States. And some of them, there are international codes that I've been finding. So I think that's really key as far as the tool being useful that you're developing. I find that to be extraordinarily useful.
Wonderful. I appreciate that.
I have an article on that, and because they're being sued in a class action suit, and there are some ethical questions about that. So there's some amazing statistics that come out in some of the articles, and so one of the things they were talking about, I have some notes on this. The notes from these articles are amazing.
Yeah, go ahead and send that to us, please. But I wanted to wrap this up if possible. First, Rich, I want to really thank you for a variety of different things. One, to giving us your time today and speaking about your experience with the Law Practice AI solution. Two, by being a great colleague and a friend and a client and all of that, and everything you've done helping us develop this platform and optimize it for accuracy. So I really appreciate that. And hopefully we have you back again when we have other versions of the software or other versions of the solution that you can help us, guide through that.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of topics to talk about. There's ethical issues to talk about. In talking about the Humana case, the governor of California just signed a bill that just went into effect saying that health insurance companies cannot only use AI to evaluate health insurance claims. Unfortunately, there isn't a companion bill to address the issue with using AI to evaluate personal injury claims. But like I said, the tool that you've developed with those diagnosis codes and those CPT codes, because that's what the insurance companies are using to evaluate personal injury claims, that tool in and of itself, I think, is invaluable. So I look forward to talking to you, whether it's on the podcast or off the podcast. I've got a whole bunch of research that I did that I think you'll find amusing and amazing and a little eye-opening and shocking when I started reading it. So thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to hear from you.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will be in touch
Thanks
again.
a lot.
Thank you for your time.